welcome to Let's Talk with Greg and
Thomas.
All right. So yes, welcome to another episode. We are having Jen Perelman on talking about electoral politics. Is it worth it, or is activism and direct action the way to go? We're going to have that discussion on today. So let's go. All right. And here is Jen Perelman. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's always nice to come and talk with you guys.
I love talking with you. So I first, want you to go ahead and shout out the show you're doing and what you're currently doing right now. You have the floor.
Okay. So our podcast is called Generational Change with a J. It was not my idea, but it's clever nonetheless. And we are on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and we're twice weekly live, but then there's lots of good segments and stuff. And for a very small show, we get really good guests. I've been told this many times, like we get some really good guest people. We had Oliver Stone for Veterans Day, which was huge for me. Wow. So like we get some really good guests, but yeah, and we're transforming politics into service. We will platform non-corporate candidates. We do a lot of interviews that are very, I would say we do deep dive interviews. We have a candidate and then usually a long form interview every episode. And Monday, we will be having on Andre Stackhouse from Whole Washington and Jason Call, who's running for Congress in Washington as well. So
we love him. We love Jason.
No, I love Jason. So he is honestly like, because he and I were slate mates, like we knew each other from running. And I always think of him as he's the Washington me. Like he and I are very similar personalities. Like we're very similar. It's like he's the Washington version of me. But yeah, so he's Monday. And then on Wednesday, we have Tom Hartman coming back on the show this week to talk about his new book. So we get some, interesting stuff. So check out Generational Change.
Awesome. Yes. And the link to that will be in the description.
Thank you.
Please tune in. All right. So today we are going to be talking about electoral politics. Is it worth it, or is direct action and activism the way to go when it comes to achieving the progressive agenda, which is basic shit for people? Come on, y'all. So
it's fairly left of center, but yet we're called progressives.
I know it's really weird, but anyway, as someone who has, ran for Congress. Do you think, is it the way? Should we be focusing solely on electoral politics, or should we be focusing on activism?
Actually, I have a lot of thoughts on this because I actually almost feel like I have empirical evidence to support that we need both. And I would urge people to understand that and work kindly with the people on the inside or the outside from whichever end you're on, because that's part of why we can't have nice things. And it's a big part because a lot of the people that are in the activist community are rightfully disappointed and skeptical. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but when you're purposefully working to sabotage the inside strategy, it's not going to help. And yet the people on the inside have to have the people on the outside to be pushing and getting public attention and awareness and support so that they have the power to actually represent inside. So we absolutely need both. And I'm someone who dabbles in both. And I can say that if we would get along better, it would work better.
I agree. And it's also, I feel like electoral politics is important because we want to have the right people in power. But activism and direct action is also very important because we need to make sure that the people are rallied and realize, no, we deserve more from our government. But what I feel like is imperative when it comes to electoral politics is that we make sure and we hold the leaders that we do elect accountable. Because then we end up with, I'm sorry, but AOC is, not delivering. She ran on Medicare for All and barely talks about it now.
Yeah. I think, every person is different. I have not met Alex. As far as I know, she's still not taking corporate dollars, so she's technically not on the payroll. I can't speak as to her.
That's debatable.
I don't know. Okay. And the other thing is you also have to look at for certain people, and she seems to be one of them, where it really does seem like a career at this, like that's,
Yeah.
they're thinking of their future either within the party, within their, you know, district, with whatever it is, like they're strategizing on the behalf of their own interests one way or another. And that is always going to disappoint. Because even if she's not taking corporate money, if you're looking out for your own career, you're not serving.
That's still self-interest and self-driven. But Thomas, go ahead. I was just about to ask you what your thoughts were on this.
You could also say that about the trajectory of Bernie Sanders, because Sanders was an outright socialist when he ran for mayor in in Vermont, and gradually sided with pro-war mentality. He sided with the Yugoslavia bombings, and then eventually, you know, has done voted for some things on any progressive would say should never have voted for, but you know, obviously kept a lot of his left-leaning ideas, but as he gradually progressed in his political career, moved away from the hard socialist mindset that he had prior to being an elected official. And that's probably more of a fact that American politics will push you rightward, and has done progressively for a lot of elected politicians. But you know, it's this idea of, you know, do you stand for your principles, or do you see what you can get out of American politics? And that's where the activism clashes with the inside game. But you can understand as an activist what has incrementalism done over the last 40 or 50 years, and it hasn't really gotten us anywhere. In fact, we're drifting backwards because we're falling into fascism. So I don't know really. It's a case of, but I will say this, that they wouldn't be gerrymandering the vote if the vote didn't matter. And the fact is that they are doing that very aggressively. They're gerrymandering aggressively. Republicans are doing that very evidently. And Democrats are sort of doing it in a way with the right to vote, with the voters' rights bill, where they're trying to dismantle the idea of third-party voters, right? With this, so they're also playing the game, the long-term game. Republicans are doing it, but like I said, they wouldn't be tampering with the vote if it didn't actually mean something. And I do. This is where I say I do believe that we need an inside and outside agenda going forward. Because they wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't important, and it is. They're
spending a lot of money. They're spending a lot of money to beat certain people, so you have to wonder why.
I want to make a point that if you are a Democrat and you want to say that you are for voting rights, then you will not vote for that bill, period. Because party suppression is just as bad as voter suppression. Or it's a form of it, really, because then it does not give people a choice or an option that they feel that they align with. You know, we don't have a left party in our country.
We don't have a Labor Party. I mean, that's ultimately what the problem is that there used to at least be somewhat of a Labor Party. The Democrats were somewhat of a Labor Party, and then Bill Clinton basically threw that out the window and trashed everything having to do with labor, and then joined up with corporations and was basically like, look, we can Reaganomics with the best of them. We're just as cool. We're just like them. We're we could be war hawks. We could be good for big business. And that was the end. And since then, we've been on this complete corporate trajectory, so that quite honestly, both parties are irrelevant in terms of there's no platform there. These aren't parties that actually are seeking to do, like, this is just tribalism and nationalism. It's not, this isn't actually parties based on platform. There is no platform. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody cares what it is. They just like their team because they like their team.
And I feel like that when it comes to electoral politics, that's what makes electoral politics so much harder, is that we have the Democrats who say that they are the party of the people when they are basically Diet Coke Republicans.
Yeah, I think it's not easy to trust in this little field that I am now somehow find myself in. But what I can say is that you just follow the money. That's the best you can do in terms of telling if somebody, because if somebody's not taking corporate money and they're only taking small dollar donations, then they really have no choice but to be for the people, because otherwise they can't, like, they're not going to be able to stay there. So the first thing to check is whose payroll is this person on, you know? And then it's sort of, you sometimes trust people and they disappoint, but then you get somebody in there like a Katie Porter, who it's like, she's like my spirit animal. I would love to have seen her litigate if she ever litigated back,
Oh my God.
But I think she is. I think she's a litigator. And I think that, like, watching her cross-examine like big pharma people and stuff is glorious to me. And so when I see people like that doing a job, it makes me know there are decent people in there.
I know that there are decent people in there. And like, I know, okay, yes, I criticize AOC, but I know like I know for a fact she is way better than Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, that's
Yes. So like I know, and that's what the activists need to do too. I know we're pissed, and I know that incrementalism is frustrating and everything, but we do need to give credit where credit is due. And like when they solely compare AOC to Nancy Pelosi, that's where I'm like, okay, that's not necessarily true.
No, and I do think that, people get very nihilistic and very hyperbolic, and they like everybody's a Nazi, everybody's like Hitler, everybody, and again, it's just name calling and tribalism. People decide whether they like you or not, and then they work backwards from their conclusion. So either you like AOC or you don't like AOC. If you do, you're going to find the positives. If you don't, you're going to find the negatives. But for the most part, these are just people. So the question is,
at this point,
why are they there?
I was just going to say, like, the problem is idolizing these people as like heroes or whatever, or they're your friend. I'm like, your politicians are not your friend. They are your employees. You're their boss. You got to remember, you are their boss, and holding them accountable is what you would do to your employee.
But it isn't personal, and it shouldn't be mean. And this is the thing. Like, if Alex doesn't support something that we want her to or not, or whatever, there is nothing wrong with saying that and calling that out and saying, we are your constituents, this is what we want, and you did not do that, and therefore we are not going to support you next time. That's totally fair game. I'm all about that. It's when it gets mean and personal that we start, and that's when it's just about teams and the fraud squad and then this, and it's name calling, and it's all of this stupid crap, because like, it's very unproductive.
And like, I remember I'm so sorry. It's because in my head I'm like, Thomas, you need to go too. But I have a thought right now. I'm so sorry. It's just I don't like, at one point they were calling her not a real Latina because she has a white partner. And I'm like, that's not real criticism. That's just you being a bully.
Exactly.
Thomas, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like, look, that's not being policy based. Like, I'm policy based. Like her voting to be a president on Iron Dome funding is disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful.
That's a no-brainer.
And that's a no-brainer, right? Okay, so that to me, like, if it's like, I've seen it. I've seen this happen. It's happening in the UK right now, like with Jeremy Corbyn being ousted as Labour leader. We have Keir Starmer, who's an outright, like a Tory light Labour leader, and the Labour, a socialist party that still advertised itself as a socialist party, is being run by Blairites. And it's happening. It's happening in the UK, same as America. I just think, obviously, America's just tenfold compared to the UK when it. this is where, you know, if a politician does something that is going to cause irreparable harm, then that's when you call it out, right? You don't call it out based on, you know, whatever dress or suit they're wearing that day or some bullshit. Like, you know, it's like if you have voted to,
well, that's performative politics.
Yeah.
And I also have a thing against performative politics. Like, I would definitely call like the criticism of that event or dress or whatever fair game and fair criticism, because performative politics, I just don't like.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the Kente cloth bullshit all over again with Democrats like that. They'll give you that, but they won't give you reparations. Like, you know what I mean? Like they won't do actually anything of systemic value.
Yeah, 1 minute
they'll write George Floyd in the road, but they won't actually do anything to solve police violence. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they won't do anything substantive.
When Nancy Pelosi thanked George Floyd, do you remember that, when she basically like thanked him? I can't even fathom what I would do if I were standing there. I almost wanted to jump out of my skin. We actually on our show have a segment called Story Time, and one of the stories is called The Kente Cloth Tales, an anthology of tone deafness. Oh my God. And every once in a while we'll read a chapter and it'll be somebody did something that like was, and it's therefore named The Kente Cloth Tales. But like when Alex voted the present, I will say that if anybody scrolled back to our channel to the show that we did, the first show after that, you'll see a Jen rant on the voting of present, because that to me is completely unacceptable. That shouldn't even be an option, by the way. Why is that an option? You're present. We're not paying you to be present. Yeah,
I'm going to choose not to go into work today. I'm going to choose not to do this assignment that my employer has me wanting to do.
It's being a pussy. Take a stand. Take a stand. Whatever that is, take a stand. Even if she voted to support it, at least I know where you stand, and you're whatever. I don't agree with you, and I would not vote for that, and I would not vote for you if that's what you're supporting. But present, no. I'm just saying, when you said that, you should have seen the rant I went off on that, because I found that absolutely infuriating.
And you know, it's really annoying when it comes to the performance side, is because, you know, Nancy Pelosi will wear the cloth and take a knee and then go on George Stephanopoulos and say that defunding the police is not part of the Democratic platform.
Of course it's not, because everything that is military is equally as part of the Democratic platform as the Republican platform, because they all take money from Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, all of that, right? So that's not going to change whether it's an R or a D. That's irrelevant. And the policing is really, to me, an offshoot of that. Like, how do we expect to be the bullies and the police of the world, but not expect to have a police brutality problem at home? How do we, you cannot be the creator of so much violence in the world and think that we're not going to have it here. I think that we're just very violent. I think in terms of our people really support that industry. The Democrats gave Trump more than he asked for his military budget. More. Like, who does that? And then you don't get to claim that you're not equally as supportive of our military. It's very frustrating. And she voted present. She couldn't take a stand on that. But to me, what that says is you're a coward. And that bothers me more than just taking the side I don't agree with. And
that's why, that's what the root of the problem is when it comes to electoral politics, is that, when we do elect these leaders that we think they're on our side, they do this. And so
then you have to vote them out. Then you vote them out. That's
at this point, maybe we should at least threaten AOC or the other progressives who call themselves progressive and they fall in the line. Like Ayanna Pressley's one of them. She too.
There's a few people, and those are even the people that are even progressive minded, even though they fall in line. But there's like 100 and something people that are members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Who the hell are those people? Who the hell?
Oh my God!
I know like 4. I know like 4 that really walk the walk. You know what I mean? Like it's so who are the 100 and something people? I don't know.
The
Nancy Pelosi's on the
Progressive
list.
Caucus seriously needs to be disbanded and like, hey, you actually have to be progressive. But go ahead.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, American politics, the paradigm is you have a far right party that aligns with the Proud Boys and are fascists, and then you have a party of far right corporatists, right? So anything left of that is going to be viewed, as you could be a centrist and still be viewed as the left in America.
I'm the left, and I would be maybe left of center, and so, although I tend to get lefter and lefter, so eventually I'll probably kind of really be left. But like,
apparently I'm a centrist in Europe, so
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, that's me, but I'm getting lefter and lefter. Like I'm starting to like, and I would never necessarily campaign on these things, but I'm starting to see things a lot more left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're just not in this country. I'm not an anarchist or anything, people. I'm not like,
So
I was going to say, sorry, the final thing, I think the thing that's been the most, I'm trying to think of the word, sorry, has been the best thing I've seen in terms of actual electoral politics is ballot initiatives have been one of the most successful ways of getting things passed. Especially for third parties, especially for ranked choice voting, especially for Florida getting a $15 minimum wage.
It really shows you populism is not red or blue, because Florida overwhelmingly voted Trump, and more people voted for the $15 minimum wage.
I want to make a point that in California, unfortunately, AB 1400 died, which would give the state basically Medicare for all.
Not all states allow ballot initiatives, though. Like they don't have it in New York. They don't have ballot initiatives. So not all states have it.
I just hope that, activism, I guess, like, to wrap it up, that if activism should probably definitely use electoral politics when they know they can win, and I feel that they can win in local elections and ballot initiatives and getting things on the ballot, so where people can actually use their power to vote. You make the power to vote more powerful, if that makes sense.
I thought I would just share this with you. I had this thought today. So how we always talk about the revolving door between like lobbyists and government, right? Like there's this corporate revolving door of whoredom, right? They just go, they give it their tops and bottoms, if you will, and they just sort of rotate back and forth. And I was thinking today that what we need to do is have the revolving door between activists and progressives that are involved, because one thing that I realized when I was running is most campaigns are top down. So somebody decides, I want that job, and now I'm going to go raise money and then put out my name to get people to vote for me for this job because I want this job. But sometimes, like the candidate that I went and spoke at his launch today, his name's Angel Montalvo. He's running for Congressional District 27 down here. He's amazing. And he is of the activist community going into this side. So it's sort of like, that's the revolving door I want to see. So, when you have that, you have a bottom up campaign, because you have somebody that's coming up through the activist community that has been in the streets, has been representing people, has been doing this work as an organizer in the community. And now that person is taking the step into that position. When you have it organic like that, it really makes for, I think the odds are infinitely better in our favor to have proper representation if we have that revolving door from the activist community into electoral politics. So I want to see more of that. And then I love the idea of people that were in elected politics going back into that. Like, that's the revolving door that's good, So that was just some thought that came to my head today when I went.
That's perfect. I mean, I agree with that.
And he would be amazing. And, I just know that they're going to come hard at him. He's challenging a Republican incumbent, but it's a +4 blue seat that Donna Shalala lost. And, my concern is that they're going to come and the Republicans will get together with the Shalala people and they'll basically throw all their money in like a couple months before and to get somebody else in there that isn't the progressive. You know what I mean?
Oh, and that's
That's the
another
kind of
thing we
crap.
need to get rid of is the fact that money, is involved when it comes to electing people, and money
Yeah.
should not be able to. We're supposed to have free and fair elections.
Well, I'm having my first, I was asked to chair a PAC so I'm actually chairing a PAC and I'm going to get to be, but my thought on it is it's for a progressive Democratic candidate and it's for a statewide race that quite honestly, you cannot win on small dollar donations. You can't, it's just not going to happen. And the Republican in there is an evangelical person who I don't want in charge of, let's say, cannabis in my state. So unfortunately, he's sitting on a $14 million, war chest for this race. And the only way you're going to compete with that is with big money. I'm sorry, but it is. So I feel like with me chairing it, I'm going to have a say so on which big money, yes, I'm willing to take and which big money. And like, for example, our Seminole tribe has suggested that they wanted to give a nice chunk of money to this particular candidate. I'll take Seminole tribe money, so it depends on it. But if somebody else were running this, I don't know that I'd feel that way. So I'm being who I am, I'm better off serving in this capacity than someone else serving in this capacity. But yeah, unfortunately, money is part of it. And until it isn't, we have to play in that sandbox. I mean, there's
and
no
you know
way
what, maybe getting more progressives into positions like what you just said, because then that way the money will go to us.
And it is, and this is specifically for a progressive candidate. But in Florida, we have closed primaries in a statewide race. There is no third party. It is what it is. So it's a Democratic candidate, but we've got to do something, and small dollar donations is not going to cut it for a statewide race in Florida. It's just not, it's not going to happen.
Well, I'm so glad that you're about to make that change.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one thing that I'm working on, but I feel like that might be a good niche, quite honestly. Hoarding progressive PAC money and giving it to the right people and the right causes. Because there are some wealthy progressives out there. There are, and hoarding that money for the right, candidates, you got to kind of meet people.
I mean, if I won like the mega lottery and I, was a multimillionaire, of course I'd be putting my money where my mouth is and electing and putting my money to like progressive causes like that.
And you'd have to go through a path. Like that's just the way it is. I mean, it's pathetic that that's the way the system is. But yeah, it's like we're constantly, progressives are constantly showing up to a gunfight with a fork. And it's like, we can't do that, And so, yeah, I'm dipping my toe into the PAC pool to see what I can do, but I'm tired of that being the issue, quite honestly.
Yeah, well, we wish you the best of luck with that. And folks, that basically wraps up today's discussion. And thank you for watching another episode of Let's Talk with Greg and
Thomas.
And we will see you next Monday. Toodles.